The trade station floated like a broken crown above a blue gas giant, its lights blinking against the darkness of space. Ships of every shape and size moved around it, some sleek and shining, others scarred by battle or age. Inside the station, life was loud and restless. Traders shouted in dozens of languages, mercenaries watched from shadows, deals were made quickly and trust was rare. Among the crowds walked a human named Kale. Humans were still new to this part of the galaxy. Some species respected them, others feared them. Most simply did not understand them. Kale did not care much about reputation. He walked with calm confidence, wearing a long coat that hid tools, weapons, and scars from past journeys. He had come to the station to find crew members for his ship. Flying alone had become dangerous, and he needed someone who could help navigate unknown sectors. Still, he did not expect to find anything unusual. The station was just another stop, another place to gather supplies and move on, until he heard laughter, not friendly laughter. Mocking laughter. It came from a group gathered near a raised platform inside one of the market halls. Curious, Kale moved closer. The smell of strange spices and metal filled the air. Voices rose above the noise, calling out numbers and bids. An auction. He had seen many auctions before, selling ships, weapons, rare animals. But as he pushed through the crowd, he felt something tighten inside his chest. On the platform stood a tall alien woman. She was slender, her skin faintly silver under the lights, with eyes that reflected colors like shifting water. A thin collar rested around her neck, glowing softly. She stood perfectly still, hands at her sides, as if trained not to move without permission. "They make excellent companions," the auctioneer said loudly. "Obedient, quiet, highly adaptable, perfect for long voyages or domestic service." The crowd murmured approvingly. Kale frowned. He looked again, more carefully this time. The alien's posture was calm, but her eyes moved slowly across the crowd, watching everything. Not empty, not dull, observing. Someone near him laughed. Smart enough to follow orders, but not enough to cause trouble. Kale felt anger rise in his chest. He had seen injustice before. He had grown up on a colony where weaker people were often ignored. Humans, especially, knew what it meant to be underestimated. Something about the scene felt wrong, not just uncomfortable, but deeply unfair. He stepped closer. The alien noticed him immediately. Their eyes met for a brief moment. There was surprise in her gaze, but also caution. "How much?" someone shouted from the crowd. The numbers began climbing. Kale turned to a nearby trader. "What species is she?" The trader shrugged. "No idea what they call themselves. The council labeled them compliant auxiliaries after a war decades ago, mostly used as pets or assistants now." Pets. The word echoed in Kale's mind. He looked back at her. She did not look like a pet. She looked like someone trying very hard to disappear. The bidding continued. Kale did not plan to get involved. He did not have extra credits to waste. His ship needed repairs, fuel, and supplies. Buying someone even to free them would complicate everything. He turned away. Then he heard a voice behind him. "Speak." The auctioneer gestured toward her. "Respond to the command." She bowed her head slightly. "Yes." Her voice was soft but clear, not robotic, not empty, just restrained. Kale stopped walking. He watched her again. The collar around her neck flickered faintly, as if reacting to something. "What is your designation?" someone asked. She hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "Unit 7. A designation, not a name. Kale clenched his jaw. Without fully deciding to do it, he raised his hand. "I'll bid." The crowd turned toward him. Some looked amused, others looked annoyed. The numbers climbed higher. Kale felt sweat on his palms. Each increase meant fewer resources for his journey. He told himself he was being reckless, that he should stop. But every time he lowered his hand, someone else raised theirs, and the thought of her going with someone who saw her as property pushed him forward again. Finally, the room fell silent. "Sold," the auctioneer announced. Kale barely heard the applause. He felt dizzy as he transferred nearly all his credits. A handler unlocked the restraints and guided her down from the platform toward him. Up close, she seemed taller than he expected. Her eyes studied him carefully. "Owner confirmed," the handler said. "Control collar linked to you." Kale shook his head immediately. "No, not owner," the handler blinked. "That is the transaction type." "I understand," Kale said quietly, "but that's not what she is." The handler looked confused but did not argue. After completing the transfer, he walked away. Silence settled between Kale and the alien. She lowered her gaze, awaiting instructions. Kale felt uncomfortable hearing those words. "You don't have to say that," he said. She did not respond. He hesitated, searching for the right words. "Do you have a name?" A long pause followed. "I am designated Unit 7. That's not what I asked." She looked at him slowly, uncertainty in her expression. "No one has asked that before," she said. Kale nodded gently. "Then maybe it's time someone did." They stood there for a moment, surrounded by noise and movement, yet strangely alone. Finally, he said, "I'm Kale." She repeated the name softly, as if testing it. He smiled slightly. "And you're not my pet. You're not my property. If you stay with me, you're my partner." The word seemed to confuse her even more. "Partner?" "Yes," he said simply. She studied him, searching for deception, but found none. They left the market together. Behind them, whispers followed. Humans were already strange to many species, but this behavior made him even more unusual. As they walked toward his ship, Kale felt both nervous and hopeful. He did not know what would happen next. He did not know who she truly was beyond the quiet strength he sensed. But he knew one thing. Sometimes humanity's greatest power was not strength or weapons. It was the simple refusal to accept the roles others forced upon someone. And for the first time since leaving her world, the alien felt something unfamiliar growing inside her, something fragile, something warm. Possibility. The ship left the trade station slowly, its engines glowing blue as it slipped into open space. The noise and chaos of the station faded behind them, replaced by the quiet hum of machinery and distant stars. Inside the cockpit, Kale focused on the navigation screen. He could feel her standing behind him, silent and still, as if waiting for permission to exist. The thought made him uncomfortable. "You can sit," he said without turning. She hesitated before moving toward a chair across from him. Her movements were careful, controlled, like someone used to avoiding mistakes. Even the way she placed her hands on her lap felt practiced. Kale adjusted the course toward a less crowded trade route. He wanted distance from the station. Too many eyes had watched them leave. After a few minutes of silence, he spoke again. "You don't have to wait for commands. If you want to say something, just say it." She looked at him, confusion clear in her eyes. "Clarify, without instruction, how do I know what is allowed?" Kale leaned back slightly. "Everything is allowed, as long as you don't try to crash my ship." Her expression shifted slightly, almost like she was trying to understand humor. "Understood," he smiled faintly. "What should I call you?" he asked gently. "I do not possess a personal name." "Then maybe you should choose one." She froze at that suggestion. Choosing anything for herself seemed unfamiliar. "That decision is unnecessary," she said carefully. "It's important," Kale replied. "Names matter." She did not answer, but he noticed her thinking deeply. Hours passed as the ship traveled through quiet space. Kale showed her basic ship functions, not as orders, but as shared knowledge. Each time he explained something, he asked her opinion. At first she gave short answers, but slowly her responses became more detailed. When he described a risky asteroid shortcut he sometimes used, she studied the map and pointed at a different route. "This path reduces exposure to pirate scanning patterns," she said calmly. Kale blinked. "You noticed that already?" "Yes." He followed her suggested path. It worked perfectly. He laughed softly. "See, partner." The word made her pause again. She looked out at the stars as if trying to understand what that meant. Later, an alert sounded. Kale's body tensed immediately. "Unknown ship approaching." The scanner showed a fast-moving vessel closing in from behind. Pirates. He adjusted shields and powered weapons. "Hold on!" The pirate ship fired a warning shot that flashed past their hull. A message appeared on screen demanding surrender. Kale muttered under his breath. "Not today." He prepared to accelerate, but another ship moved ahead of them, cutting off escape. They were being boxed in. She stepped closer to the console, eyes focused. "They are coordinating," she said quietly. "Their pattern suggests ambush training." "You think we can outmaneuver them?" "Yes, but not through speed alone." He gestured toward the controls. "Show me." She hesitated only briefly before reaching forward. Her hands moved across the display with surprising confidence. "Redirect power to forward thrusters while simulating shield failure," she said. Kale raised an eyebrow but trusted her. He followed her instructions. Their ship appeared to weaken, drifting slightly as if damaged. The pirate ships moved closer, confident. "Now," she said. Kale triggered a sudden burst of acceleration. At the same time, she activated a signal pulse that confused the pirates' sensors. One ship overshot its position, colliding lightly with the other. Kale laughed in disbelief. That was brilliant. The pirates scrambled to recover, but by then Kale had pushed the engines to full power, leaving them far behind. Silence filled the cockpit again, broken only by the sound of their breathing. He turned toward her. "You saved us." "I followed logical strategy," she replied. "Still counts." For a moment she looked uncertain, as if unsure how to respond to praise. Later, while checking damage reports, Kale spoke again. "You were never just a companion species, were you?" She remained silent. "You don't have to answer if you're not ready," he added gently. She looked down at her hands. "My people once held positions of strategy and diplomacy. After conflict with a powerful alliance, we were reclassified as non-threatening servitors." Resistance was discouraged through conditioning. Kale felt anger again. "That sounds like a political decision, not reality." "Yes." Her honesty surprised him. They continued traveling, slowly building trust. He encouraged her to explore the ship freely. At first she moved cautiously, but over time she began asking questions about human culture, about music, about humor. He showed her an old recording of Earth's oceans. She watched silently, eyes reflecting the blue waves. "It is peaceful," she said softly. "Yeah," he replied. "Home can feel like that." Days later, a message arrived from a galactic council authority. It warned Kale that transporting classified auxiliary species without proper registration violated social order guidelines. He read the message aloud. She lowered her head. "You may return me if compliance is required." Kale shook his head immediately. "Not happening. This may place you in danger." He shrugged lightly. "I've been in danger before." Her expression changed slightly, respect perhaps. As their journey continued, she began acting without waiting for permission. Small decisions at first, adjusting course slightly, preparing meals, monitoring sensors. Each time she acted independently, she watched him carefully, expecting correction. Each time he nodded approval. One evening, while sitting together in the quiet glow of the cockpit, she spoke suddenly. "I have selected a name." Kale turned toward her, surprised. "You have?" "Yes." He waited. "Lyra," she said. He smiled warmly. "That's a beautiful name." She seemed almost shy hearing it spoken. Outside the ship, stars stretched endlessly, but inside something new was forming, not ownership, not control, but trust. Yet danger still followed them. Unknown ships appeared on scanners days later, tracking their movements. News of a human traveling with a freed auxiliary had spread faster than Kale expected. Some saw them as symbols, others saw them as threats. Lyra stood beside him, calm but determined. "I choose to remain," she said quietly. Kale nodded. "Good. Because I wasn't going to let you go anyway." For the first time since leaving the station, she smiled. And in that moment their partnership truly began, not built on rescue or obligation, but on shared choice. Far behind them, powerful forces watched closely, realizing that something dangerous had begun. A human had refused to follow the rules, and one alien had chosen to stand beside him. The stars stretched endlessly ahead as Kale's ship moved through deep space. The quiet hum of the engines felt heavier than before. Both of them knew that the warning from the Galactic Council was not empty. Someone was watching. Lyra stood near the observation window, her eyes reflecting distant lights. She looked different now. Not because of her appearance, but because of how she carried herself. Her movements were no longer hesitant. She walked with purpose. Kale noticed the change and felt proud without saying anything. A sudden alert broke the calm. "Multiple ships entering range," Lyra said quickly, her voice steady but serious. Kale leaned forward, checking the scanners. 3 ships appeared on the display, sleek official designs marked with council insignia. "They found us," he muttered. A communication request appeared on the screen. He accepted it. A tall alien official appeared, expression cold and controlled. "Human pilot Kale, you are instructed to surrender the auxiliary unit immediately. You are violating council order." Kale crossed his arms. "She's not a unit, and I'm not surrendering anyone." The official's eyes narrowed. "Your emotional attachment is irrelevant. Social classifications exist to maintain stability." Lyra watched silently beside him. Kale shook his head. "Stability for who?" "Because it looks like control to me." "You misunderstand galactic history," the official replied. "Her species agreed to reclassification after their defeat." Lyra's gaze hardened slightly. "That's not the full truth," she said quietly. The official ignored her. "Prepare to be escorted." The transmission ended. Kale exhaled slowly. "Well, that went about as expected." The Council ships began moving into position, blocking escape routes. Lyra studied the screen carefully. They anticipate flight. Their formation suggests containment, not immediate attack. So they want us alive, Kale said. That's something. He turned toward her. You okay? She nodded slowly. Yes, but this moment was inevitable. Kale adjusted the controls, calculating options. Fighting Council ships directly was impossible. Running blindly would only delay capture. Lyra stepped closer to him. There is another option. I'm listening. We go to them willingly. Kale stared at her. You want to surrender, not surrender, she said calmly. Confront. He hesitated. The idea felt dangerous, but something in her confidence made him pause. If we continue running, she explained, they will label you a criminal. If we face them openly, we create opportunity. Kale considered her words carefully. You have a plan? Yes. He smiled slightly. Then let's hear it. They allowed the Council ships to guide them toward a larger vessel waiting beyond, a massive diplomatic carrier used for high-level negotiations. As their ship entered the docking bay, Kale felt tension rising in his chest. He glanced at Lyra. She looked calm, almost peaceful. You sure about this? He asked quietly. Yes, she said, because I am not alone anymore. They stepped off the ship together. Armed guards watched closely but did not interfere. Inside the carrier, bright lights and polished metal created an atmosphere of cold authority. Several Council representatives waited in a circular chamber. Kale noticed how many eyes focused on Lyra, some curious, others dismissive. The lead official spoke first. Human, your actions disrupt established order. Explain yourself. Kale shrugged slightly. I treated someone like a person instead of property. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Lyra stepped forward. I request permission to speak, she said clearly. The officials exchanged glances before nodding. She lifted her head proudly. My people were not naturally submissive. After our defeat, political agreements misrepresented our abilities. Conditioning technologies were used to ensure compliance. Over generations, truth became forgotten. The room grew quiet. You claim historical error, one council member asked skeptically. I present evidence, she replied. She activated a small device, projecting data, ancient records, strategic analyses, proof of manipulation during the Old War. Kale watched in awe. He had known she was intelligent, but seeing her speak with such clarity and strength felt different. The officials studied the information carefully. Some appeared shocked. Before they could respond, alarms suddenly blared. Unknown ships attacked the carrier. Kale instinctively moved closer to Lyra. Looks like someone doesn't want this conversation happening. Explosions shook the chamber. Emergency lights flashed red. Enemy forces boarded the ship, trying to seize control. Chaos erupted. Lyra's eyes focused sharply. These attackers aim to destroy the evidence, Kale nodded. Then we don't let them. They moved together through the corridors, working as one. Kale handled close combat while Lyra guided their path strategically, predicting enemy movements before they happened. Crew members watched in surprise as the so-called auxiliary species directed defensive maneuvers with incredible skill. At one point, Kale found himself surrounded. Before he could react, Lyra activated a control panel, sealing blast doors behind them and cutting off enemy reinforcements. Remind me again why anyone thought you were just a pet, he said with a grin. She allowed herself a small smile. Misclassification. Together they reached the main control room, where attackers attempted to erase the data. Lyra connected directly to the system, restoring the files and broadcasting them across the Council network. Truth spread instantly. When the fighting finally stopped, silence fell over the carrier. Council representatives gathered again, their attitudes changed. The evidence could not be ignored. The courage displayed by both Kale and Lyra forced them to reconsider old assumptions. The lead official spoke carefully. It appears our historical records require reevaluation. Lyra met their gaze without fear. We seek recognition, not revenge. Kale stood beside her proudly. After long discussion, the Council announced a temporary suspension of auxiliary classification for her species while investigations continued. It was not complete victory, but it was a beginning. As they returned to their ship, Kale looked at her. So, partner, what now? She watched the stars thoughtfully. We continue, she said softly, together. The ship left the carrier, flying into open space once more. Behind them, change had begun. Across the galaxy, others heard their story, a human who refused to accept injustice, and an alien who rediscovered her voice. Humanity's strength was not just power or technology. It was the willingness to see value where others saw nothing. And as their ship disappeared into the endless stars, their partnership became a symbol of something greater, proof that equality could reshape even the oldest systems. The journey ahead was unknown, but they would face it side by side.